Hi. So let's talk deadlines.
What's really interesting about the word deadline, think about what it means, and think about the flawed premise that people even approach that from, because when they speak of dead, they mean it's the end, there is no more, and there isn't even any deadline in dead, because you're eternal beings. In other words, the whole premise of a deadline is flawed.
Okay, so I have a lot of those flawed premises that have manifested themselves. And I totally accept responsibility that the more I focus on them, the more of them I get, and the shorter they are, and the more impossible they are to meet. So that part of it I get, just stop focusing on it. And there seems to be, like if I was to say deadlines are out of the vortex, I wouldn't even know what the in the vortex opposite of that is, like opposite ends of the stick. If there's deadlines on one end, what's on the other end?
Well, let's talk about what a deadline in the way physical people mean it is anyway. So when you believe that, and a lot of people do, and it's accurate because they're observing life and this is the conclusion that they've come to. But when you say, I need to accomplish such and such in this much time, so that means I need to offer this much action to get this much result in this much time. They're almost always out of the vortex when they're doing it, and they're not utilizing the leverage that in the vortex would allow them. Now, we're going to get more detailed about this just to really make this point very clear. We played with it earlier today when we talked about if you don't take the time to get into the vortex, then everything about life is harder. Everything takes more time. You have to go back and do things over again. You rendezvous with people that don't know what they're doing. In other words, when you've got this time crunch that you've got going on, it just gets worse and worse. It's like the more out of balance you get, the more out of balance you get. Where if you just sort of walk away from the behavior and the action, and you take the time to, no matter what, meditate, release, relax, soothe yourself back into alignment, next time you approach it, it will be easier for you. Now, there's another piece of this that we're sort of hovering around, and we want to bring it in because we haven't talked about it before in this detail, and it will be a good conversation to have. So, most people who are approaching things in a deadline perspective are trying to accomplish an outcome with behavior or action. And what we were talking about earlier, you just can't manipulate it enough. You can't grab enough people. You can't make them do what they need to do. In other words, you just can't get there from there. Action isn't the answer. And yet almost everybody that even uses the word deadline is so completely action oriented that they're just fighting against themselves. People who work with deadlines, while they do accomplish things, it is still mediocre creation because they are just going about it the hard way. And even though they may get, by earth standards, some results, they've sacrificed their joy in the process and therefore have failed at the reason that they exist. So a deadline is completely out of the vortex. Now let's consider the other side of that. Let's call it a lifeline rather than a deadline. So what's a lifeline? Well, first of all, everything you want has already been arranged, and law of attraction has already assembled it. And so if you're reaching for alignment, now things can happen easily. In other words, Jerry said in the beginning, a lot of people were coming to him and saying, you need to have more people help you, or you need to find a way of letting people know about Abraham. And Jerry always said, I want to let this happen. I'm not going to try to make anything happen. And so that was just his philosophy. He didn't care if there were 5 of you or 10 of you or 20 of you was the magic number that made them break even, but he wasn't going to put any deadline pressure on anything. I'm just going to let this happen. Then one day he said to Esther, she remembers it vividly, he said, I think I'm about ready to let this go. Meaning, I'm ready to just let it be whatever it be's. I'm not going to try to control it. I'm not going to try to hold it back. I'm not going to try to promote it. I'm just ready to let it be. And those words were barely out of his mouth. Within 24 hours, people began contacting him Wayne Dyer called and said, I'm listening to the recordings. I'd like to meet with you. And when he did, if there's anything I can do, just let me know. And a stream of people, influential people who were already on this path, began offering their endorsement. And all Jerry had said was, I think I'm ready to begin to let this happen. And then Hay House, the publisher of all of these beautiful materials, called and said, we would like Abraham to write a book and we'll publish it. And then another and another. And the ease with which that unfolded is evidence of no deadline. It was evidence of lifeline. It was evidence of trusting the system of the law of attraction, and allowing it to do what it knows how to do. Everything that we're talking about is about releasing the barriers between you and you, the lifeline of who you really are focused in this moment. That's everything, because who you are is confident, and who you are is worthy, and who you are is eager, and who you are is talented, and who you are in your physical body is particular, and who you are is choosing, and who you are is worthy. There is never a reason to try to push anything, because everything is unfolding in its perfect order. Everything is right on track. Everything is unfolding perfectly. So it's a matter of no longer trying to struggle it into place and deadline it into place and bang it into place and coerce it into place and demand it into place. It's a matter of letting it be, letting the goodness that you so deserve, that you've so set into motion, that you've so even recently contributed to magnificently, just let it be. Let it be. Someone should write a song. Let it be. Let the good times roll. Let the fun be. Let my attitude improve. Let the evidence be shown. Let the world understand. Let me know right now. In other words, let who I really am be present in this moment. Let my eagerness be. Let my passion be. Let my clarity be. Let my balance be. Let my metabolism be. Let my well-being be. Let my cells do what they do. Let my children be. Let my nation be. Let my government be. Let the healthcare system be. Let the ecology be. Let the economy be. Let the good times roll. Let it be. Let the well-being be. Let the earth spin in its orbit in perfect proximity. Let it be. How involved in that are you? You're not involved in that. You let that be. You let that be. And you can let everything be in that same expectant of good things to be, because you've set it into motion. And the larger part of you knows it. And when you train yourself into that expectation, then well-being abounds always. Really good.